What started as a simple urban exploration adventure turned into a night they still can't explain to this day. Let's get into the story. My name is James, and this happened about 7 or 8 years ago when I was in my early 20s. Back then, I was still doing things that, looking back now, were probably not the smartest decisions. One of my closest friends at the time was a guy named Charles. In our friend group, Charles had a reputation. If there was an abandoned building, an old factory, or some place we definitely weren't supposed to be exploring, Charles had probably already found it. Every few days, he'd drop screenshots in the group chat of some random structure deep in the woods or on the outskirts of town. Most of our friends would respond the same way. That sounds insane, but I was usually the one replying with something very different. When are we going? One weekend, Charles sent me a message about a fire lookout tower he had discovered deep inside a forest a few hours away. I honestly can't remember the name of the forest anymore, but Charles claimed the tower had been decommissioned years ago and abandoned out there. According to him, it was just sitting in the middle of nowhere, completely forgotten. His plan was simple: hike out to it, climb it, and spend the night at the top. At first, I was skeptical. Structures like that are usually fenced off or locked up, but the idea of being 70 feet above a forest with a full 360-degree view was too tempting to ignore. So we picked a weekend and made the trip. Charles planned everything: the drive, the gear, even the route we'd take once we reached the woods. It was about a 3-hour drive and then a 4-mile hike off trail. We reached the forest sometime in the afternoon. I honestly expected us to wander around for hours and never find the tower. But then we saw it. Through the trees, rising above the forest canopy, was the tower. I remember just staring at it and saying, "No way." When we reached the base, the surprise only grew. There were no fences, no warning signs, nothing. Just an old metal fire tower standing alone in the middle of the forest like it had been forgotten by time. The structure looked rough. Some railings were bent or missing, and graffiti covered parts of the lower beams. Rust had eaten through sections of the metal. It definitely didn't look safe. But Charles was already climbing. I shouted up to him to slow down, and thankfully he did. After a moment of hesitation, I followed him. We climbed carefully, testing each step before putting our weight on it. Most held, but a few wobbled badly where the bolts had rusted through. The last section was a vertical ladder about 20 feet tall with nothing but a narrow metal cage around it. My heart was pounding the entire climb, but when we finally reached the top, the view made everything worth it. The forest stretched endlessly in every direction, and we had perfect timing. The sun was starting to set. We sat on the walkway outside the cab with a couple of beers, watching the sky slowly change colors. Orange turned to purple, then deep blue. Eventually, the last bit of sunlight disappeared, and suddenly the forest below us became a black void. There were no lights anywhere, no houses, no roads, just darkness. The stars, though, were incredible. I'd never seen so many in my life. But the longer we sat there, the more uneasy I felt. It's hard to explain the feeling of being that high above the ground, surrounded by miles of forest you can't see. Charles noticed I was getting tense and started messing with me, grabbing my shoulder, whispering stupid things to scare me. Then he slammed his metal water bottle against the side of the tower. The sound was deafening. The metallic clang echoed across the forest like a giant bell. It was so loud it genuinely made me angry. I told him I was going inside the cab. He stayed outside to finish his beer. Inside the cab, there wasn't much left. It was basically an empty square room with windows on all 4 sides. I started setting up my sleeping bag when Charles suddenly called out to me. But his voice was different this time. Quiet, serious. "James, come here." I walked back outside and saw him pointing down into the forest. At first, I thought he was joking again. Then I saw it. A light, far away, moving slowly through the trees. My first thought was that someone had heard the noise Charles made. For some reason, I started whispering. "You idiot," I told him. "That's probably someone coming to check the tower." But Charles shook his head. "You think that's a person?" I frowned. "What else would it be?" He pointed out something I hadn't noticed. The light wasn't swaying like a flashlight in someone's hand. It was perfectly steady, gliding through the trees, almost like it was floating. We watched it in silence as it slowly moved closer. Then, suddenly, it jumped forward. Not gradually, it zipped forward, like someone skipped a frame in reality. Then it continued moving normally again. That was the moment both of us started getting scared. Within 10 minutes, the light reached the base of the tower. It stopped directly below us. From 70 feet up, we could see the glow, but we couldn't see who or what was holding it. It just sat there, completely still. The silence was unbearable. Then Charles did something unbelievably stupid. He yelled down, "Hey, you good down there?" I stared at him in disbelief. No response. The light didn't move, not even a little. We waited. Charles yelled again. Still nothing. And that's when it really hit me. We were 70 feet up in an abandoned tower, and whatever was down there was standing right at the base of our only way down, completely trapped. Eventually, the light disappeared, just gone. That somehow made things worse, because now something could still be down there, and we couldn't see it. We moved inside the cab and blocked the door. About 20 minutes later, we started hearing noises, metallic clangs echoing up through the tower. Not footsteps, more like someone striking the metal beams with a tool. Then a grinding noise, metal scraping against metal. The sounds moved around below us for hours. Then I saw something, a shadow moving across one of the windows. My brain froze. The shadow passed across another window, and I screamed. Charles and I immediately ran to the door and pressed our backs against it, ready to hold it shut if someone tried to come in. We stayed like that for what felt like forever. By the time morning finally came, we were both exhausted. When we opened the door, there was no one there. But when we started climbing down, we found something that made my stomach drop. An entire section of the staircase was gone. Not broken, not collapsed, gone.
Someone had completely removed part of the metal stairs during the night, while we were sitting directly above them. We had to jump across the gap to continue down. Charles twisted his ankle when he landed, but we didn't stop. We got out of there as fast as we could. There was nothing waiting for us at the bottom. No person, no tools, no missing pieces of the staircase, nothing. To this day, neither of us has any explanation for what happened that night. Not the light, not the sounds, not the shadow outside the window, and definitely not how someone removed an entire steel staircase without us hearing it. Every time I see Charles, we still talk about that night, and neither of us has ever gone back.